Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is Michelle, and who's here with me?
It's JD.
It's JD. It's always JD, and it's always Michelle.
Woohoo, it sure is. It sure is.
It sure is. Yep. Well, today we did not watch Shudder. It's Spooktober. We're doing something cool that we have done. This is our third year in a row where every day we release an episode about some spooky movie. We do record them in advance. This is our requirement to tell you. We feel legally obligated to at this point because we have every episode. It's August 13th. And if you just listen to the Coco episode and you're like, wait, yesterday was August 13th. No, we recorded them one right after another. We have the power to do that. We are in the past. We are controlling your timeline right now. I hope you like it. I hope it's a good timeline. So far here in the past, it's not all that great. So hopefully we really improved it for everybody else because, oh man, it's real rough out there. So yeah, Spooktober. We are just going back through some older movies and reviewing things that pertain to Halloween or are Halloween adjacent. JD would not let me include Mean Girls in the list, even though there is a song specifically about Halloween. So I guess we drew the line there. But we do have a different movie to talk about today. And what is that movie, JD?
That is a movie called The Houses October Built from, I believe, 2014.
Correct. You are correct.
Yeah. Found footage film about the title, The Houses October Built, referring to haunted houses. And, you know, they spring up all over the place around Halloween time. And all about how, you know, it came out right around that time where people were really talking widespread about more extreme haunts and stuff like that. Predates Hell House LLC by several months, almost a year, I believe. Similar movie, but plenty different enough on its own. That's what we're talking about. Had you ever seen this film before we watched it for Spooktober, Michelle?
Oh, yeah. Tons and tons of times.
Of course you had.
Fanatic. Yeah.
Yeah. I had never seen it. I had, frankly, look, I'm going to tell you this right off the bat. The reason I avoided this movie for so long, and this is entirely independent of my opinion of the film, which we'll talk about in a minute, I do not like this title. This was a title that made me say, nope, I have no interest in watching that movie at all. And I just, so that's how we get to I've never seen it until this opportunity came along. And so here we are. The Houses October Built. We just got done recording the Coco episode that you may have listened to a couple of days ago, a couple of months ago, a couple of years ago. Maybe tomorrow you'll go listen to it. I don't know. Feeling a little, I don't know what I'm feeling, Michelle. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. You should probably take over from here.
Okay, I can do that. The House is October Built. I am going to read the IMDb description.
Wow. I have not had a brain fart like that in a long time. Holy shit.
At least we're still in the part of the show where we have some structure that we can fall back on. Once we get into spoiler territory, it's all like whatever goes, and that's when I'm like, that's when we talk about The Good Place.
I had a whole thought planned, and it just went blank slate on me right in the middle of about the third word, and I'm already convinced I'll never remember what it was again.
Welcome to my life with my memory disability. That's what it feels like. Just like, I promise I had something to say, but I did just have a small seizure, and maybe it'll come back someday.
Is that is your life kind of like that guy in that movie Memento? Have you seen that movie? It is.
I used to tell people that's what my life was, because that's why I write so many notes, because I had to write myself notes or I would forget everything.
You remember things backwards or whatever? However that movie. Anyway.
Backwards. He didn't remember them backwards. That was just the method of storytelling.
God. I know. Anyway, that's not this movie. Sorry. Spoiler alert, by the way, for Memento. My bad.
You figure it out immediately.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
It's not a mystery. It's the gimmick.
The IMDb description of this not Memento movie. The House is October Built. 5 friends are stalked by a group of mysterious and disturbed individuals while on a road trip looking for the ultimate haunted house attraction. The house is October built 2014, not rated, an hour 31 minutes. Dear God, yes, give me a sweet 90-minute movie. Well, JD, do you want to give us your thoughts first? Do you have an opinion on who goes first?
Do you want those thoughts to be spoiler free?
Oh, yes, please. I think that's a great idea. We should have had that idea from the beginning. Why on episode 251 are we thinking of this? We're dummies. Should have had that figured out by now.
Just so dumb. Frankly, I'm also surprised none of you out there, none of the tens of people who listen to this podcast took a moment to say, hey, you guys should probably be careful with them spoilers. That's definitely a thing that we've never heard from anybody ever. Anyway, just a little bit of a throwback to like one of the first comments we ever got. By the way, if you haven't left a comment or a review on your podcast platform of choice for us, it'd be really cool if you would do that. Anyway,
only if you like us. Don't do it if you don't.
If you don't like it, that's fine. Just turn it off. Don't listen to it. Go listen to somebody else. You probably like Dead Meat or something. Maybe
I don't know what that is.
That's another podcast.
Most meat is dead. Otherwise, it would be part of the animal.
No,
still.
Michelle, I think most meat is still alive.
Yeah, but then it's still a person or an animal.
It doesn't make it less meat.
I mean,
this is it's always meat, That's what I'm saying. It's just whether or not it's still alive or dead. It's still meat.
See, and I think that if you're still alive, then it's muscle, and that there's a big distinction there. The second you're dead or it's removed from where the rest of your soul is living, then it's meat.
Where the rest of your soul is living?
Yeah, like in your brain. I'm assuming that's where the soul is.
We should probably just move on before we get real deep into a conversation about how souls don't exist. But, all right. How's this October built? I'm not always the biggest fan of found footage movies. If you listen to us regularly, you know that. I kind of enjoyed this. There are definitely things about this movie that I really, really liked. Let me say, I think it's known in the production of it that they actually filmed a lot of this at real haunted houses and real locations. And some of my favorite things about it are definitely tied into that production method. I think as the movie goes along and they really get into the story of it, I found it really kind of, not that it's badly done, it's just is a story that we've seen plenty of times before, right? It's not reinventing the wheel in any way when it really gets down to business. But overall, it was a good film. I don't know that I would ever go out of my way to see it again, but I don't regret seeing it. I'm going to give this one 2.5.
2.5. Okay. 2.5 from
right
JD.
down the middle. Right down the middle.
Right down the middle.
You know what?
I actually thought you were going to really hate this.
I'm feeling generous. Let's give it a 3.
Whoa.
Let's give it a 3. I'm feeling generous.
I really
Probably
thought you weren't going to like
M&Ms.
this. Surprise. Oh, jealous. I wish I had peanut M&Ms. Oh, no. And he's frozen. Is he coming back? He mentioned the peanut M&Ms. And then I completely lost
now
him.
Michelle disappeared.
It does say I have poor connection on my end.
This
Which
is going to be one where we just
would happen.
trip it out when everything comes back together in good fashion.
It was currently going well and not to jinx it.
I don't
and
know.
Then look at what happens.
It's not looking
We're
good.
We're going to go switch over to my friend, the mobile hotspot. You guys,
beepy.
The internet's crazy.
I cannot believe we continue to have these ridiculous difficulties. I'm going to try calling Michelle back
so much
here
more
and see what
information
happens. Michelle?
Than I should, but at the same time, I sometimes can't record my podcast, and that makes things very difficult. I am here. I was explaining
Did you just keep recording?
The world of tech. Yeah, I did.
So did I. Cool.
I was explaining the world of technology to our friends. I have some thoughts.
It's shitty is how the world of technology is. Anyway, we had just completed. I just completed my spoiler-free thoughts on The House is October Built with a 3-skull rating. Michelle, give us your spoiler-free thoughts before this whole thing falls apart again.
For sure. Okay, so found footage is my jam. I love it. I love found footage. Well, let me correct that. I love watching it. I don't always love the movies. There's some real not good found footage out there, but if there's something found footage, and it's ever been mentioned on Reddit, I can pretty much guarantee that I have watched it, because I am just always looking for that next fix. This is, of course, found footage, but it is also partially a documentary. And if there's one thing I love as much as found footage, it is documentaries. Those are like my two jams, like my peanut butter and my jam, just making a delicious little sandwich. Some of the strongest parts of this are the documentary portions. Right before we got recording, I knew that a lot of this was documentary style footage and real footage from visiting different haunted houses. I did not know that the documentary of The House is October Built from 2011 actually exists. So I'm going to have to go watch that because I love extreme haunts. I have a lot of notes about haunts and haunted houses. Yes, JD.
If you are able to find that documentary, please let me know, because I immediately spent a decent amount of time trying to locate it somewhere, and I couldn't find a trace of it. So please let me know if you find it. Anyway, please.
Will
What
do.
was your
I'm
rating?
a master of finding those. I will tweet the people who made this movie and ask if I can buy it, if that's what it comes down to, because that would be great. Anyway, so yeah, there's a documentary. I really want to check that out. But there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about in the spoiler section that I will leave be for now. I think I'm going to be more generous towards this than a lot of people would be, because like you said, it is kind of formulaic, but at the same time, it just hits on so much stuff that is very specific to what I enjoy. I'm going to go 4.25 for me.
Nice. Yeah, I kind of figured this was going to be...
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I know that you love this kind of thing in general. And as I watched it, I was like, yeah, this is probably Michelle's jam for sure.
A big part of it is because it's a documentary about haunted houses and extreme haunts. And that is a thing that I actively look for, and that will get into spoiler territories, because I just have a lot of notes about haunted houses that I want to talk about too, because it's just a very specific subject matter that I'm super into. I think if it had just been like them being stalked by people in an RV, I wouldn't have had any interest. It is specifically the way that they use the documentary and then the way that it ties into everything. It's just really well done, and it's made by people who love the same things that I do. So,
for sure.
House is October
All right,
Built.
guys. 4.25 for Michelle, 3 for me. That's 3.625 average, I believe.
Correct.
Did I do the
Yep,
math
out
right?
Of 5.
Yeah,
You did.
3.625. So if you don't want any spoilers, you want to go check it out before we talk about it, now would be the time that you would want to pause the episode. Make sure you come back when you're done. Michelle.
Yeah.
As someone who has seen this movie several times, summarize the plot, please, for people who haven't seen it any times, Jenna.
Yeah, Jenna. Oh, she better have seen this one. She's a massive horror fan. Okay, it's funny because I've seen this many times, but yet if you ask me the specifics of like any of the plot, I'm not going to, there's like 5 people, they're in an RV. They're going around the country, going to different haunted houses, and they are searching for those extreme haunts. This was back in 2014. Now, like, the extreme haunts are pretty well known because the internet is a thing, and so we have access to that information pretty easily. But back in 2014, you had to hop in an RV and talk to people in small towns and ask them, like, where are your spooks at? Where do we get the good spookums? I want the shiver me timbers. So they're driving around trying to find the best ones. They're in an RV so that they can travel and sleep and not pay for hotels. So, you know, that like, it's just a fun lifestyle. I'm just jealous of being able to do that. Anyway, so they are just going to different haunted houses and they're interviewing people, and those are real interviews, interviewing scare actors about why they enjoy doing it, some of the situations that they've encountered, asking people standing in line why they enjoy going to these houses. I really want to check out the documentary that this is based on because all of that was very interesting. And then at a certain point, one of the guys who's in the RV, he pisses off a clown, and you just don't do that. That's like one of the main rules of life. You don't piss off a clown. And then, like 2 hours away from where he pissed off the clown, he sees the clown again and he goes, there's no fucking way. We drove so far. There is no way that's the same clown. Spoiler alert, it's totally the same clown. And then they see a lady outside whose name is Porcelain wearing a doll mask with very little hair and very animated eyes, and they bring her into the RV, and then she screams for a while and then says some gibberish and leaves. So like that lady is never invited back to the house again. She's the person that you make sure does not get the Facebook invite for your birthday party. No fucking thank you. You can stay home, you little weirdo. I don't need friends like you. I'm the friends like that, and my friends are trying to avoid me already. We don't need another one in the group. They're gonna have to choose between us, and I already don't get invited many places. Anyway, therapy portion. So they start realizing that people are fucking with them. Somebody comes into the RV and films them with their camera and then uploads it to the internet. All these things are getting very wacky, and they're trying to keep it under wraps because they don't want everybody getting so freaked out that they go home. And then this guy hears about a very extreme haunt. So he's like, okay, that's what we're going to do. And basically they communicate via text. They get there. They've been fucked with by a lot of people. They put meat in their meat, or was it still a person? It was meat. In the fridge, they put skulls on the windshield wipers. They just stood outside the RV and banged on it. And so they get this text telling them to go to a place. They go to the place and they say, get out of the RV. And they do. And everybody gets loaded into this bus, and they're blindfolded or hooded, whatever you would consider that. They are tied up, I think, hands are tied, and they just are driven places and slowly let off the bus one by one until the lady is the only one left alone on the bus with strangers. It doesn't even have to be related to a haunted house. That is stranger danger. No fucking thank you. We'll get back to that with some of the haunted houses I want to talk about later. But yeah, no, it sounds absolutely awful. So then they all wake up in different sections of haunted houses. They experience the haunted houses. Bad things start happening. One guy gets buried alive, and then the girl gets buried alive. And then it just cuts to more interview footage about haunted houses. And for a while, that ending had to grow on me, because at first I thought it was so anticlimactic. And I was like, after all of that, and this movie I'm super into, but now after seeing it more times, I find it very poetic, especially because at the beginning, Brandy's talking about how she's terrified of being buried alive. And that's exactly what happens. And it is very anticlimactic, but at the same time, that's exactly what they've been saying, is like they're building up, like, don't trust these fucking people. Because it's not always a safe situation. And then they do, and it's like, okay, well, you disappeared from the face of the earth now. So yeah, I got thoughts on the ending, but that's it. That's The House is October Built. And now I understand the reference. The House is October Built because they're haunted houses. October, the spooky month.
Yeah.
It's the reason these houses exist. No, I knew that before. I'm just saying, no, like before watching this, like how you hate the title, I didn't know anything about this, and I thought it was
Sure.
I don't know, there's another movie, not The House that Jack Built, because that's fairly recent, but there's a different houses movie that I thought this
there's
was,
a lot
and I
of
was,
the house
Well,
of or at or
true.
in or yeah.
So
first
I
of all-
didn't realize haunted houses.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. I talked in my spoiler free about how there are certain parts of this that I really, really enjoyed, based around the locations where they filmed, and that's what I really liked about it. I thought there's a very natural feel to it because it is just documentary footage, right? They clearly just went to some of these people and were like, hey, we are making this movie. We would love to feature your haunt in our movie, and all we want to do is have permission to run the cameras while we walk through your haunt for a little while. And then maybe we'll tack on a scene as we come out of the place or whatever. And there are some moments in there, like there's one moment in particular that I saw that definitely felt like they really tried to ask somebody to take the cameras into the haunted house, and the people were really like, no fucking way, you can't take your cameras inside our haunted house. And I thought, yeah, I loved the realism of that. I also very much love the realism of the five of them together in the van. If I read correctly, these are apparently people who have known each other a while. They've I don't know if they've been working together or they're
Two
related.
are brothers, I think, because they have the same last name. So yeah.
Yeah, well, and I mean in real life, not in the movie. Like these people.
Yeah, I'm talking in real life.
Oh,
They have
okay.
the same
Okay.
first
I wasn't
names,
sure.
and then two of these, Bobby and Mikey, share a last name in real life.
Sure. Okay. But even then, I feel like a lot of that stuff was them just turning the cameras on while they were on a road trip, right? It feels not just improvised, but it feels like they just happened, like they probably just turned the camera on at the beginning of the day and just let it roll while they were being themselves. And then every now and then they'd be like, hey, we should do that thing for the movie where we talk about this. That's the thing I liked the most about this is how very naturalistic and believable so much of the setup chunks of this was. And again, as it got into more of the action of the story, as things develop with those are they real people? Are they not real people? Is it maybe a combination of both? I don't know. It lost me a little bit just because, again, felt a little formulaic. But yeah, I'm very interested. I'm actually curious. Maybe the reason we're not or at least I wasn't able to find a lot of it. Maybe most of the documentary footage is in this movie. I don't know. I do obviously understand now why the movie is called The House is October Built, because that's a great name for a documentary about haunted houses. Fabulous name for a documentary about haunted houses. I don't know so much about a found footage movie about haunted houses. I might have just called this movie Blue Skeleton. Right? Now, because that's weird enough that people would be like, what the Blue Skeleton? I don't know. But yeah, I really, really liked that element of it, and that's why I say if you are able to find that documentary, you got to hook me up. I want to see it.
I'm going to go talk to the people.
Let me ask you something, though, Michelle, because you obviously have way more deep awareness of the various extreme haunts and stuff that have been going on. I know a little bit. I know enough to be able to ask this question. Like 90% of the stuff they talk about this is McCamey Manor, right? Like the burying people alive and putting hoods over their heads and like false kidnappings and all this. This is all McCamey Manor stuff, isn't it?
Not necessarily. So for those who don't know, and actually Russ McCamey just got arrested on
I heard about that.
Attempted murder and rape, and it was from his girlfriend. So apparently that's what it took. She didn't sign an NDA. So
you mean the lady who maybe the one who he took out into the desert for however long, and she just doesn't remember 3/4 of the time she was out there?
Yeah, I've got some more info on McCamey Manor,
anyway.
By the way. But for those unfamiliar, Russ McCamey is a guy who advertised having the most extreme haunted house. And in order to go through this experience, you were by yourself. You had to be pre-screened, which was just like a video interview with him. There was no charge to do it except for a can of dog food that he would then donate. And then you would just be subjected to his whims. There's no safe word. You are just whatever happens to you, happens to you. And people left in very bad mental spaces after that, but yet people kept doing it. McCamey is very different from other extreme haunts, which is why I say that not necessarily. There are definitely other extreme haunts where they'll bury you alive, they'll cattle prod you, they'll punch you in the face. Like it's just Russ McCamey feels like he does it for the enjoyment of hurting people, as opposed to other people doing it trying to fulfill a thrilling experience for people. So this guy was just kind of straight up torturing people. One thing that I did not know until I was doing a quick brush up on some of my favorite haunts is that it's suspected that like in all these videos that Russ puts out from McCamey Manor of him like putting these people through this experience, he always has them eat something. And he has told people that he uses tactics from MK Ultra to actually torture these people. And they're wondering if there's actually some sort of LSD or something in what he makes them eat. And then apparently it's rumored that he tries to hallucinate them into believing that this is an enjoyable experience. So he's torturing them while they're on LSD. And hearing that as a suspicion makes it so much fucking worse. Like...
Well,
Oh, the
also,
McCamey
if
stuff
that is
yeah.
if that is the case, it also completely removes any possible suggestion of legal consent as well.
Mhm.
Because anybody proven to be under the influence of an intoxicating substance cannot, in fact, consent to anything.
Yeah. Can't consent to having your teeth pulled out and suffocated. Yeah. Yeah.
I was just curious because, like, even little things, like there's that moment where there's a sequence in here where they go into a room and you're never sure if it's a part of the haunt or if it's a real thing happening. But
Mm-hmm.
there's like somebody locked inside an old refrigerator. Just
Yeah.
all these little things that I remember from what I've seen in documentaries. Like, of course, there was Monster Inside, the documentary specifically about McCamey Manor from Hulu last year. We did an episode about it. Check it out. I don't know what number it is because I just thought of it, but it's back there. Another documentary. What is it? It's either called Haunts or Haunters. I don't remember specifically what it is. But it's a documentary about haunted houses. That's the first place I really started to hear about McCamey Manor was in that. But definitely check those out. So please then continue. Tell us more about these extreme haunts and the inspiration behind this movie.
Absolutely. And I kind of took it this way when I was doing my notes because this movie is what it is, but it is half a documentary. So I just have to comment on stuff that I know about. I'm obsessed with extreme haunts. I don't know if I could ever actually go through with like 90% of extreme haunts. There are some that appeal to me. But I love haunted houses and I love watching videos from extreme haunts as long as it's, not McCamey Manor. That is on its own a completely different thing. There are other ones that have gotten shut down for being like not having safe words and people feeling like they were way too violated. But then they got shut down. Russ McCamey just kept operating. It's a very, very weird situation. I have so many questions about like how many people did not seem okay with what happened, but yet he never like experienced any persecution before this. Anyway, so some of the extreme haunts that I know of, I just have like a list, but I don't want to go through all of them because I've never done one, but they are fascinating. If you know McCamey Manor, you know the dark side of like extreme haunts and somebody who seems to be doing it because they enjoy hurting people. But for the most part, it's a cathartic experience and it's thrilling. And at the end, you feel like you came out better. One that is actually on my bucket list that I do want to do is I think it's called Alone. And I think that's the one located in Los Angeles. And as it implies, you are just by yourself. And I think if I'm getting my names correct, which I think I did, I should have actually written this down, but that's the one where it is meant to be a surreal experience where you question reality and what exactly is going on. And it's supposed to be more of like, kind of like a drugged out, like what the fuck is going on situation. I would love that. I don't want to go through anything where I am tased, if it's a little bit of a taser, I'd be fine with it, but I don't want to go through a haunt where the fear is being hurt. That doesn't appeal to me. Like I can handle pain, whatever, but I don't need to experience something and be like, wow, I can't believe that I survived that cattle prod. Like scare me instead. But Alone is the one where like you will go through everything and it changes all the time. So people will release like what happened the year after so that they're not ruining it for other people. But that's the one where people have thought that they were done going through all of this weird building maze and then they just go out a door and they're out on the streets of LA and they're like, oh, okay, it's done. And then they start walking down the street and things seem a little bit off and then somebody comes up and kidnaps you and never mind, you're still in the experience. Like that kind of thing, that really sounds appealing. There's one that I believe is based out of New York called Blackout, and that one is probably pretty similar to McCamey Manor, but again, not shitty. That's the one where you have safe words, you are, but you're still physically tortured, I guess you could say at times. But they're at least like creative about it, not just like doing unauthorized dentistry on your mouth.
Isn't that, Michelle, also the one that they talk about in Monster Inside where they have like they have like therapeutic staff and psychiatric staff on hand at this thing, like not just medical staff, like they have mental health people there to be able to deal with
Aftercare.
this. Yeah, to do aftercare for the sort of thing.
See, I was trying to remember if it was Blackout, which it probably was
I think
then,
it was.
or if it was Miasma, because Miasma is one that might also be on my list to do, and it's very similar where they say that they want you to come out at the end as a changed person. So that's, yeah.
Miasma, now that I think about it, might be the one that was in Monster Inside, and then I think Blackout was also in that Haunters or Haunts. I got to find out what this documentary was called as well.
Both of them were probably mentioned because they're some of the most widely known one. Like, I think Blackout is probably like the most widely known because every time I see discussions about haunts, it comes up. There's one that I just found out about tonight that I'm just fascinated by called The Tension Experience, where it starts as like an online thing where you have to crack some codes and then you figure out the location and then you can go through the whole thing. But they said that it's very weird because they're like interrogating you and it doesn't feel like there's a purpose and nobody fully understands like why they do it this way or like what the whole reasoning for it is. And what I was reading about it was a couple years old. So by this point, maybe it's cracked open, but I just love the concept of like, we don't even know what this fully is, but we signed up to do it anyway. And now we're just as confused and you should do it too. So like that really appeals to me as well. That just sounds bizarre. And I'm super into it. And just as a side note, I just learned that in Denver, there's one called the 13th Floor, and it is year round. And I am going to Denver in a month and very seriously might be going to see whatever the fuck they have going on right now. Because I'm hoping that they have haunts year round. It sounds like they do, but yeah, I love haunted houses. There's so many good ones. And even if you can't handle like massive haunts, there's like just the transformation of Universal Studios every year into Halloween Horror Nights. Like that's so cool. I just love fear. I think I'm afraid of everything in my real life, so simulated fear is very appealing to me.
I gotcha. So I myself am not the I'm not into the like I startle real easy, and so a lot of that stuff is just even a little bit too much for me. Even just like even just a modern like really really well done haunted house is probably more than I'm really interested in handling. Maybe once every now and then. I do want to ask a little bit about the movie itself, though, Michelle, because especially with you being somebody who's seen it multiple times, do you get the feeling from this movie that these guys were set up from before the movie ever starts?
Set up like to go through the extreme haunt that they wind up and then die on?
Yeah, the whole thing was these people behind Blue Skeleton were aware of these people and the documentary they were making and their intention to come there. Did you get the impression a little bit that this was all already in motion before their road trip ever began?
I definitely think that there's way more orchestration than what we're showing. Because obviously, like, the one clown showing up 2 hours away, like, that required planning. I don't know at what point it started, though, and now next time I give it a watch, I'm going to keep that in mind, because it's definitely possible.
If I remember correctly, the thing that triggers, or at least appears to trigger to us as the audience, the clown and porcelain and these apparently either magical or whatever entities to start following them happens at the very first haunt they go to. Because at the end of the night, they like go up on that roof with the bullhorn and do stuff that they weren't supposed to do. And from that point forward, like these things are following them. And I just kind of got the impression, and again, because of, like you mentioned, the what's the lady's name? Brandy. mentions at the beginning of the film that being buried alive is one of her biggest fears, and then that's what happens to them. I feel like that maybe, and because the guy is Zach, or whoever the main guy is, he's constantly like,
yes, Zach,
or was it
yeah.
He's obviously been online trying to find out about these things since before they even started this road trip, and he's got this list of different places that he's going to be visiting. So I don't know, it feels like maybe that's part of what they were intending to go on here. I do still want to know to a certain extent, how much of this is supernatural and how much of it is real people. Because, the clown just showing up like it's been following them. Porcelain just showing up out of nowhere. Who was the creepiest part of this whole thing to me, by the way. Porcelain was super creepy. The bunny, the feaster bunny, just showing up out of nowhere. And then the sequence, of course, where they're in the RV and they turn the headlights on and there's all those people out there, and then a split second later they're all gone. But then a lot of it does feel like, so I don't know if it's a combination of real people and some weird supernatural thing. I imagine there might be more to learn from the sequel. I don't know that I'm going to be running out to see the sequel, but I think it's going to be in the back of my head as one of those I'm just looking for something to kind of throw on kind of titles. I thought that was a little bit of a level that it was a little more interesting than some movies like this. Yeah.
I don't think there's any supernatural element.
None at all?
No, because I'm not convinced that the clown at the next location is actually the same clown. It's a costume, somebody else. So if it's orchestrated, it could be somebody else with the same costume and adding to that fear. There would be like some very good timing things like the headlights and those kinds of things. But at the same time, like maybe they're very fucking good at this. I think I just give a lot more credit to like how insane these experiences could be. And where to me, I prefer like that the horror is that these are bad people who should not be doing this.
Yeah, and I also wonder if, in a way, it's a matter of, yes, they were aware and were the Blue Skeleton people were aware that they were coming out to do this documentary, and they were watching, and maybe none of this ever happens if they don't go up on that roof and start shouting at people like they were told not to. Because that's when the clown first looks at them and starts following. Maybe it's just these people who are so into the idea of what they're doing that even a simple piece of disrespect like that would be the kind of thing like, well, we were going to bury you alive and then dig you out, but now we're just going to bury you alive and let you die. Like, that's, it's so, I don't know. The more I sit here and talk about it, I just watched the film yesterday. I may need to go watch this again. This is one that might, like I said, I didn't dislike it. I thought it was pretty decent, but I think if I saw this again, I might actually like it a little bit even more than I did on the first time. It seems like there might be some clever stuff going on here.
I just read a huge spoiler about the sequel.
Oh, please don't tell me.
Now, I'm just going to say it explains some stuff from the first one, so I probably do have to go. It's the IMDb description.
Okay.
It's, yeah.
I will make sure to not read that.
Yeah, and it's not really, okay. It's probably not actually a spoiler. By my levels, it is. JD and I are sticklers about it. It's not one I'm mad about. I'm just like, oh, that does explain some things right away. And I probably have to go watch the sequel, too, because I have more questions now. I just happen to have the IMDb up. And now I gotta know. Some more stuff.
Did I hear you say you agree, though, that overall Porcelain was the creepiest part of this whole thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. God. Why couldn't the mask just be bald? Why little patches of hair? Why is that?
Individual stringy hairs coming out of that head.
No, and they're so long. It's not like she just missed a spot shaving. I know it's a mask, but like theoretically, this is a person who is deliberately shaving around these tiny parts of their head so that these specific strands can stay long. I don't like it. The other like option is like losing their hair, but no, I like to think that that's deliberate grooming. Yeah.
So I do find an interesting thing in the plot of this film as well, in the fact that Zach supposedly is murdered on his own, separate from the rest of the group, and then the other 4 are buried alive. Anytime something like that happens, where one of them is separated from the rest and supposedly dies alone, and he's the guy who's been trying to orchestrate this whole thing from the get-go, I'm a little suspicious of that fella. But I guess we'll see. Maybe I will go watch this one again, and maybe I'll have to come around and maybe reevaluate my score on it. And this is what I love about doing this show. Yeah.
Yep, you gotta watch the sequel then.
It's something I really enjoy about getting to do these conversations is, sometimes while you're working your way through it, you realize, oh, shit, there's some shit going on there that I didn't think about.
Yeah. One more haunt that I totally forgot to mention earlier.
Please,
I'm just nerding out about these. There's one called the 17th Door in Buena Park, California that really interests me too. And it's because it's 17 rooms. And each room is a different thing, like a particularly scary or painful or whatever thing. And you're given a safe word. And for most of the extreme haunts I know of, sometimes they have multiple safe words before they'll stop a thing, but then they'll pull you out if you do the second one. But most of them, like if you say your safe word, everything's done. They're immediately like, okay, let's get you out. Are you okay? Like taking care of them. The 17th door, when you say your safe word, you're done with that room, but you move on to the next room. So it doesn't just pull you out. It says like, this thing is my limit, but I would like to continue. And I don't know, that just really appeals to me too, because that's something like I wouldn't get in there immediately, be like, nope, can't do this. I have to leave. Like if the very first thing is like a thing that I cannot do, then I can say like, nope, sorry, but I can still enjoy other parts of it. So I don't know. I really like haunts. I like extreme emotions.
Do they then have to have like a second master safe word in case, say you get 3 in and you've been through a ton of shit in those 3 and then you're like, look, I can't handle any more at all? Or do you have to like say your safe word 17 times?
Good question. I have a feeling because the 17th door is people who are trying to do this in a very ethical manner that if you said it and then told them, like, I will say it in every single room going forward, they're going to be like, oh, okay,
probably
thanks for letting us know.
No, look, yeah. I'm just done. I'm just done entirely, guys.
Unlike McCamey Manor, where there is no safe word at all. Like, that's the thing that for me, like, there are haunts that don't have safe words, and that's okay if that's what you're consenting to and you feel safe in those hands. But I think for me, the ones that I would even consider, like, safe words are like... That's how it becomes an ethical situation. Or like a guaranteed ethical situation of like, I have the ability to withdraw my consent at any point and then it'll stop.
That's why, to me, Michelle, I have to be ethically opposed even to the operation of a haunt in which there are no safe words. Because something that's crucial to consent must be continuous.
Yeah.
And
I do think...
Just because I said 2 hours ago that I was willing to let you torture me as long as you wanted to, doesn't mean I'm going to agree with that in 2 hours, you know? And so, if consent is not revocable at any time, it's not consent. And
the thing about the ones...
I can't get behind that.
The ones without safe words aren't necessarily that, like, you can't still say stop, but that they have to read you a little bit better. So it's not saying, like, oh, you can't stop this no matter what happens, but having a word like watermelon that you can just yell out and they're like, oh, absolutely, this is the breaking point. It's just a little bit more like it adds to that fear, and hopefully, like, you can communicate to them in a different way. So I'm not saying that they're going to, like, continue if you're like, but they have to read the situation better, and that's true of like sexual experiences. Some people don't need a safe word, and they just hope that the other person will understand their body language and what they are actually okay with, and that just seems more tenuous in those kinds of situations.
I guess the one thing I would say, though, as I say, I guess, look, I'm not saying these are things that shouldn't be allowed to occur. I just have ethical problems with the very existence of such a thing. I guess if you're the kind of person who's perfectly willing to say, no, I am legally revoking my own control over consent for the next 2 hours or whatever, I'm going to be here. I will not be able to stop it. You're going to do, like, if that's a thing you want to do, I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's just, fuck. It just
you can't
seems
imagine.
like,
yeah.
It seems like everybody, a lot of people like to believe they have no line until you get to the line. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, it just seems so fucking risky to me to ever have that situation.
Risky. But I mean, it's not even something that's completely like off my table. If they're like, no safe word, but this really cool extreme haunt, I'd be like, fuck, okay, that one does sound really cool.
Oh,
but
no.
the difference between us is you are not even interested in the ones that do safe words. So I think
no.
Yeah, so I'm like, that's why to me, I'm like, well, it's a little bit more tenuous, but I understand it. And you're like, fuck no, I'm not interested in potentially being cattle prodded. And I'm over here like, as long as the whole thing's not cattle prodding.
I'm not even particularly interested in something really scary jumping out of me from a dark corner as I come around, you know? No, I definitely don't. Here's the first thing. You sure as shit are not gonna fucking touch me at any point whatsoever. Keep your goddamn hands to yourself. I might punch a guy without just like reactionary. It's not gonna hurt him because I'm a wuss. But I will lash out and punch. I almost punched a guy in a haunted house who just jumped out and scared me. I got startled at work the other day just because one of my clients is a perfectly normal-looking human being happened to walk around the corner as I was coming down the hallway. I do not belong in a haunted house. Go down.
Fun fact, that's common with people who have anxiety. What?
Yeah.
Do we have anxiety?
Never.
Back when I used to, at a previous job where I had my own office, that's important. That's not me bragging, although it was really fucking cool to have your own office. But I had my own office and I was very stressed out in that environment all the time. And the way that it was set up was my desk was kind of further back in the room. So when somebody walked in the room, they had to like walk all the way in and turn their whole body to see if I was there. And so many times my boss would just walk in to like have a normal conversation and I would yell because I was startled. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just very stressed out doing this work. And that's when I learned like, oh, that's people with anxiety startle easily. And me in a haunted house being like, okay, you can stab me a little bit, but if you jump out, like that's a line for me. Like don't spook me. I have heart problems, but a little bit of strangulation is fine.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Michelle. So obviously we know. I love how this episode has turned into just like a discussion about like haunted houses, and it is.
Yeah.
I will also. I do want to point out that it's weird to me that some of these things continue to be called haunted houses or even haunts. I think extreme horror experience is about as accurate as you're gonna get. It sounds pretentious, but I remember the first time I heard about McCamey Manor and the idea that they were just calling it, this isn't a haunted house, this is a torture dungeon. Is what
even people who are into extreme haunts do not classify McCamey in the same.
Even things like miasma or blackout, like these are not haunted houses. These are a different thing entirely that sort of evolved from that idea, that basic concept of entertainment, and just got stuck into that category because it already existed and it was easier. But
And I think it's one of those Venn diagrams where all haunted houses are haunts, not all haunts are haunted houses.
right, yeah. I think my issue is because the word haunt implies like spooky,
Ghost.
scary, ghost,
gotcha.
startly, and so it's a weird concept for me. But there was
gotcha.
a point I was gonna make here. I don't know what the hell it was. Now it's completely
McCamey
gone.
Manor not being classified as a haunt.
No,
We were
yeah,
starting
there
with
was
that.
something else I was talking about. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
No, I'm very. I don't want to go to the spooks. That's not.
I
something.
do.
Here's
I'm
what I
really
wanna
excited
do.
because I want to make the Denver one happen next month. I just found out about it, so I'll keep everybody posted and post pictures and stuff if I do get to go. It's exciting.
Here's my haunted house, Michelle, and this is my haunted house that. Okay, so here's the one haunted house where like. Okay, let's try this with no safe word, or this extreme experience.
Okay.
In the paperwork, we tell you, here's the deal. We promise you no one will touch you. There will be absolutely no physical contact whatsoever. It's just going to be a psychologically stressful experience, an anxious experience, but in exchange for guaranteeing your complete physical safety throughout the entire thing, you have to agree that it doesn't stop until we say it's done. And then you just like, okay, it starts through that door over there, and they go through that door, and it's just like a tiny room, and you just slam the door shut and lock it and turn the light off and just leave them in there for like a week.
Actually, I just had like a crazy thought. It's not that crazy. It's just like it an epiphany. So you said that you don't like haunted houses without safe words, but I just realized so there are extreme haunts with safe words and without safe words. But most of the lesser haunted houses that you can just go to like a haunted farm don't have safe words. Now
No,
that
they
I
don't.
think about it. So
But
now
I
I'm just like,
believe-
oh my God. Like there's a point where it gets so extreme that you need a safe word, and then it gets more extreme and you don't have a safe word anymore. Now
Well,
that
and
I think about it.
Yeah, I do think though that in most of those situations it's more of a expected to be more of a common sense thing where you like somebody starts screaming no I need out and everybody just like stops and they're like okay and let them out here whatever get them through. There'll be staff people with flashlights to walk them through. I mean I'm just guessing. This wouldn't be an experience I ever actually had in my life where I had to be let out of a haunted house because I was too scared.
Well, this is
just a
coming
guess.
up. Like this episode's coming out in October when there are a lot of haunted houses happening. Should we go to like all the area's haunted houses and see which ones
Wait,
you can't make
First
it
of
through?
all, no, we should not go to all of them. First, for
Oh.
no other reason than they're very expensive.
Okay.
And I don't want. Michelle's like, oh yeah, to watch you be a terrified little baby.
Yeah, that sounds
to watch
great.
you be a terrified little shit-eating titty baby. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will. I don't. We can talk about it, I guess, Michelle. We'll see.
man. I've been talking to some
like,
friends about getting a party
No,
bus
I-
and doing all of them, so I will
Michelle-
keep you posted.
I need you to understand. I'm 43 years old. I haven't been in a haunted house in 27 years. I was in high school
They have
and
evolved.
like mid high school the last time I was in a haunted house.
This is gonna be the year we
Here's-
get you really into haunted houses.
Here's what I will agree to here on the episode so it's locked in place and I can't get out of it. I will do one of your choosing
Acres
and
of
then
Terror.
we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Acres
Wait,
of Terror.
Acres of Terror, how far do I have to walk? This is can't we do like the haunted pumpkin patch or whatever where I just get to ride in a cart? Can we do that one?
We'll
Do I have to
figure something
walk?
out.
No,
Well,
it's fine.
Acres of Terror requires you running through a cornfield with no lights and a chainsaw. Right
Okay,
behind
no,
you.
look,
So,
I'm definitely well. Here's what I will say about that is No, it doesn't. Because what I can definitely assure you is I am always 100% aware that there's no way in hell that the Acres of Terror just outside of Fargo is actually going to chase me with the real chainsaw. And so once I have to start quote-unquote running, I'm just going to walk and let that guy come up behind me and wave his chainsaw, because at that point, sorry, dude, running is more than you can ask of me.
Fun fact.
I'm fat, guys.
Record.
I don't know if you know that. If you've never visited our website or our social media, I'm fat. I don't run.
Fun fact.
I would let a motherfucker chainsaw me before I ran away. I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but go ahead.
Okay. I'm getting your point. Fun fact, off the record, I will not be citing my source. Believe me or don't. I have a friend who is a scare actor at Acres of Terror, and they have been for quite a while, and they say 1 year they forgot to take the chain off the chainsaw. Just one night. But, like, that's the kind of thing that, like, when you're in a haunted house, you never know if the person putting it on is competent enough to keep you safe. And that's an added fear.
To be totally honest, when you stop and think about it, this is like sub Carney level like setup here.
Anybody can do it.
Just random people setting up scares in their backyard or whatever.
I've done it before. I've been part of a team of people who just went like, here's an empty building. We're putting together a haunted house. We didn't have any permits, like nothing in place. It's just like, oh, we're allowed to use this building and like decorate it and then jump out at people. And like, what if we have some cool lighting? Like, absolutely nobody oversaw what we were doing.
Next year, you and me, we watch Shudder, teaming up with the Fargo Theater for the Haunted Movie Theater.
Yeah. It is haunted, supposedly.
So it is. All right, guys. How's this October built? Pretty solid film. Definitely recommend checking it out. Like I said, I wasn't blown away by it, but it was a good time. Michelle very much enjoys it. And I'm going to go watch it again at some point here based on our conversation today, because now I feel like there might be more happening here than I initially gave it credit for. And that's what we do on We Watch Shudder. What are we talking about tomorrow, Michelle? At least tomorrow in the original time at which this episode dropped, October something or other, 2024.
We are watching, releasing an episode October 14th of a movie I haven't seen yet, Monster House.
You haven't seen it as of the time of this recording, August 13th?
Correct.
You've never seen it even once before in your life?
Never seen it even once.
I have seen it.
I'm into extreme haunts, not this kiddie animated bullshit. Kidding.
Like Coco's Monster House. Says the lady who is 100% the reason Halloween Town is on our schedule for the month.
Hell yeah. And if I knew that you wouldn't have put up a fuss, I would have put I think there's 3 Halloween Towns on the list. But I will just watch them, and we will only review one.
Do we want to call an audible and just like talk about the trilogy on that episode?
Yeah, I'll spoil all of Halloween Town for everybody.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'll watch them, whatever. Let's do it. All right, the Halloween Town episode is a trilogy episode. Oh, I've said it now,
3.
Michelle.
I know there's at least 2. I think
I've said it now. I have said it now.
Monster House. I'm excited to really get into the fun family nostalgia stuff. So more of that coming up.
I get the feeling this is going to prove to have been our longest episode of Spooktober that wasn't for a new movie, and I'm totally cool with that because we had a lot of fun chit-chats about the haunty spookies.
The haunty spookies. Spoken like a man who doesn't go to extreme haunts.
Well, 85% man, Michelle.
Oh, fair.
It's a whole story, guys. It's a thing. It's not an important thing. Anyway, do we have anything else to say?
Cat.
Are you really?
That's
fabulous.
I just really like napping, so I have to imagine.
Michelle, so guys, it was, obviously June is like International Pride Month or something like that. But here in Fargo, they have their own citywide Pride celebration that goes on here in August. And they had the big Pride Parade this past Sunday. And I was there for the parade. And I got to tell you, the most delightful thing I saw in the entire parade, and I don't care what anybody thinks of it is I watched half a dozen just high energy, still in love with life, young children lose their goddamn minds over a truck full of folks in furry costumes. Just playing their characters and being life-size animals and not playing their characters is not the right way to say it. I apologize. Just expressing themselves, and none of this nonsense that you hear about folks who choose to live like that. Just some kids having a good time, not caring about anything, but there's just some cool costumes, some cool looking folks going on there. And I just got a real kick out of it. I thought it was super cool. There was also a little girl running down the street in a costume that made it look like she was riding a rubber duck, and that was super hilarious too.
God, I love Pride. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good time. Real good time.
I got nothing else.
I don't either. Say goodnight, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.
For more horror content, visit WeWatchShudder.com, where you'll find our world-famous, patent-pending Ghoul blog and Squelch files, as well as a schedule of upcoming episodes. Find us on social media at WeWatchShudder on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I guess Twitter if you're still doing that for whatever reason. You can email us. mail@WeWatchShudder.com is the address. mail@WeWatchShudder.com. You can even call and leave us a voicemail, 701-566-9510. No, really. 701-566-9510. Give it a shot. See what happens. We Watch Shudder is a production of Rat Factory Media.